Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Extra Gents Scents. It's time for another fragrance review of a scent that is friggin' awesome. It's Widian London. This is the box, and this is also the box within a box. I know. I've been doing reviews of things that are really good here lately, and that's a spoiler alert. It's a good fragrance, so like really good. But I'll tell you why as we go through the video. I promise pretty soon we'll get back to reviewing some stuff that sucks, but I got this in as part of my haul from Lucky Scent that also had Frank number 2, which I already reviewed. So I really wanted to talk about this one as well. So in today's video, I'll show you guys the presentation, which is really good. I'll break it down for you, let you know why it is so good, and let you know why you should check it out. So let's jump into it and talk about Widian London. So like I said, I got this one from Lucky Scent at the same time as I got Frank number 2. This one though, quite a bit more expensive than Frank number 2. Frank number 2 was $140 for 100 mils. This $285 for 50 mils. So that's a big difference. It's like twice the cost for half the amount. And if you do shop on LuckyScent.com, use the code GENTS10. It'll save yourself 10% off your order. And I'll link this one in the description below in case you want to check it out. First off, let's go ahead and knock out the presentation. Then we'll talk about the fragrance a little bit. So here you got the outer box. It has a really pretty watercolor with the bottle on the front there, and then some images from London. Up top, you have the name of the house. On the back, it just says London Sapphire Collection Parfum. And then on the bottom, you have your ingredient information and your badge code. Mine is W2114. And this is the box inside the box. So you have this really nice design on the front, the name of the house once again, and the name of the house up top. And then you give the pull tab a little pull, and your bottle sits down inside this deep foam cutout. And here we have the bottle, which feels really good in the hand, has nice heft to it, really pretty coloration to it. You have that London image right there on the front of Big Ben. You have the name of the house at the bottom there. On the bottom of the bottle, you have your batch code once again, and the cap does click into place. Let's go ahead and waste a couple sprays, and we'll start talking about the fragrance. Atomizer on this one is okay. It's nothing great though. I would like a nice pressurized atomizer, with this really, really opulent presentation and everything, but I will make do. So this is the type of fragrance where you probably have a pretty good idea of what you're in for, at least to an extent, when you look at the note breakdown, because some of the notes that jump out there are gonna be leather and raspberry. So anytime you see raspberry and leather in a note breakdown, people will automatically think, okay, that's Tom Ford Tuscan leather, and that's either a clone or inspired by or an alternative, whatever you want to call it. So the first time I sprayed this on, it did remind me of Tuscan leather. And yet, it's another fragrance that is reminding me of a classic Tom Ford that after wearing it multiple times, I like more than the Tom Ford. So this one hits you with a leather note right off the bat that's actually really smooth, nice and refined. The raspberry in here is sweet, but not overly aggressively so. Actually reined in a little bit more than the raspberry in Tuscan leather is. And that sweetness lingers longer in London for me than it does in Tuscan leather. And I really like that. It's like this smooth, creamy, slightly jammy raspberry, a little bit dark. The leather that's in this fragrance at times comes across like it has a little bit of a petrol gasoline vibe, but it's very low key, very low key. It's not like a Fahrenheit type of petrol leather. Like it's not that in your face. It's actually more subdued. So you can pick it up a little bit, wafts of it coming through, but it never becomes the focal point of the fragrance at all. There's an oud note in here, but it never really comes across smelling like oud to me. There's nothing in this fragrance actually that comes across animalic. There's nothing that comes across rough. It's actually pretty well refined. The blend is very good here. Nothing is working against any of the notes. It's all just working cohesively, very smoothly together. So even though there is that oud note in here, nothing that I perceive comes across smelling like oud necessarily. I get like a woodiness in there as the fragrance dries down, but not anything that would be funky or, like I said before, animalic, barnyardy, none of that. And as it dries down further, you get this nice warm vanilla that comes out and mixes together with the remnants of the raspberry as the fragrance dries down, really again helping to smooth out the edges of the leather in the scent so that it never does have any harshness. This is like Tuscan leather smoothed out, ramped up, and made somehow even more expensive smelling. And along with that violet that I mentioned, you get a little bit of an extra floral nuance as the fragrance dries down, kind of along the edges, gives it a little more depth. So this one is interesting in the sense that when I first spray it on, I immediately go to Tuscan leather. I think about Tuscan leather, but then as you wear it more and it dries down on your skin and you kind of know what to expect, it starts to kind of go its own way. So it's not really as close to Tuscan leather as it might first seem. It has similarities, but they differ, they go their own ways. It's kind of like Parfums de Marly Herod. When that first started making the rounds, everybody was like, oh, Parfums de Marly Herod is basically just Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. But then as people got more familiar with Herod and wore it more, they were like, I mean, they're both tobacco fragrances with this sort of sweetness, but they do things in very different ways and ultimately end up smelling quite different. That's kind of what this is to Tuscan leather. This is definitely more wearable than Tuscan leather, I would say, because the raspberry in here, as I mentioned before, not as in your face, not as aggressive, much smoother, a little bit more subtle, but still having that nice sweetness to counteract the leather in here. It doesn't have any dirty facets to it in spite of the oud, in spite of the leather. You would think with those two notes, there would be some funk, but there really isn't. It's very rich smelling, very smooth, as I said. It has really nice performance, above average, all the way across in terms of projection and longevity. So very strong in that category. But in spite of having that performance, that solid blast of projection and that longevity, it's not as overwhelming as a lot of other niche leather fragrances can be. So it maintains that wearability. So overall, it's just a scent that I would probably rather reach for over Tuscan leather because it has more versatility. The fruitiness is a little bit more subtle, a little bit darker. The slight floral hits that you get are done with just the right deft touch. The leather is smooth, it's rich. Everything about this is top notch. So it's one of those circumstances where even though it's $285 for 50 milliliters, that sounds crazy expensive, but you're actually getting something here that feels like you got what you paid for. The presentation is slick, the bottle is beautiful, it's heavy in the hand. Literally the only thing that I can ding is the atomizer kind of sucks, which is so minor because it's not like it's a terrible atomizer, it's just not as good as the rest of the presentation. Now, in terms of seasons, obviously more of a fall and winter time fragrance, setting me up for some nice new ones to be wearing this year. More of an evening fragrance, I would say, but I'll wear it during the day as well. And as I said, with the performance above average across the board. This is my first fragrance from the house, won't be my last because this is a really nice introduction to the brand. And if you like fragrances of the style, of the sort of Tuscan leather, or if maybe you like facets of Tuscan leather, but some of it didn't work for you. Maybe it was just too aggressive, maybe the raspberry didn't work out for you, something like that, then check this one out. This is a pricey one, but it's worth the money. Solid stuff, fantastic fragrance, Widian London. If you've smelled this one, let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and also if there are other fragrances from the house that you think I need to check out, let me know about those too. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with me here until the end. Stay safe out there, and I will see you again tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.